Hello, Eastside kids, teachers for grades K through 12. We are going to cruise very quickly through some things that we need to talk about to make sure that we're all up to date in giving our kiddos the best. We are going to be talking about understanding our kids, the schedule of classes, and safety policies. So when we understand our kids, it's really important to remember that these kids are incoming kindergartners to outgoing second graders. And in some services, you just have those kindergartners and first graders. Things to think about. These kids can only sit in place for the number of minutes that they are years. So if we have a 5-year-old, they can only sit there for 5 minutes, and you can figure out the rest of the math. But this teacher science, this idea was determined before tablets and iPads and iPhones and all of that. So since that, this idea and this concept has really decreased. So when we are planning our day, really think about how we are getting the kids up and moving from spot to spot. We don't really want them doing one activity for longer than 5 minutes. They need to be able to do something. Just sitting and listening, it can't happen for longer than 5 minutes. Writing and reading. We have kindergartners who will come in and they'll know how to read and write. A large group of students will leave second grade still not being able to read fluently or write fluently. And when we do activities that are heavy in reading and writing, it just magnifies, I need to know how to do this here too, and I can't do it. And so it can stress some kids out. So just be really cognizant of that when you are looking at the lessons and what Orange has given us to do. Sometimes they want them to read or write, and it's just not something that some of our kids can easily do. How I get around this is I will break up students by age group and put them in a diverse aged group. So I'll pull a K, a 1, a 2, a K, a 1, a 2 of students to make sure that I can have some leaders in those groups that know how to read and write. And I will tell them, you are the reading leader, you are the writing leader in those groups. Social skills. We have a really big group of really kind children that want to hug and love and squeeze and touch, even something just as small and sweet as a hand on a knee of a friend next to them. That's something that we should make sure that we tell our kids all the time, that they have to keep their hands to themselves. If you look at it from a different perspective, some of our kids that are getting loved on do not want to be loved on. They're maybe not comfortable with it. They've never met this really outgoing other child, or they have met them and they don't want to be touched. And so it is just something to think about, that we need to remind kids to always keep their hands to themselves, because we don't know who we're loving on, and we don't know if that person has the language yet to ask, please stop. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of protecting all those kids in our classroom. Speaking out, a lot of kids don't have the social skills yet about speaking out or blurting out because they have something to say, or say, my hand is raised, I have a really good idea. So you can model that in a couple of different ways. I know there are certain parts in my class where I want them to raise their hand. And so I'll ask a question, and as I'm asking the question, I'll say, who can tell me? And that signals to them, hands are raised. A lot of times during those instances, I'm standing up and kind of more of an instructor role. Other times, I just want them to talk to me. And so at that point, I will be sitting on the ground or sitting at a table with them and say, let's just talk. You don't have to raise your hands. Again, but you'll see this theme through here about it's our job to tell our kids how we want them to behave. It's not their job to guess the expectations or the behaviors of the classroom. Cause and effect. This age group is still learning cause and effect. And so they can't always make the best choices themselves. They don't know that running in this tiny room can lead to someone getting hurt, or that a quick little push, even though it's friendly, could result in a decent tumble. You can see here, Miss Jan thought about cause and effect. She is doing a science experiment, and she knew that if she put all of the ingredients on the table, the kids are going to stand up and get closer and closer and closer, and something was going to get tipped. And so her job as a really strong instructor is to think, Cause and effect. I know it's going to happen, so I am going to plan accordingly. And you can see that's why she's backed up. Everybody's sitting down, everyone can see, and everyone was engaged. Expectations. This group has the biggest desire to please you. You saying, good job, I'm happy to see you, that's a great thought, good thinking, is going to make their day. So a way to easily praise children is by telling them what you want to see. I'm looking for students sitting nicely. I'm looking for kiddos that have a bubble in their mouth. I'm looking for, and you lay it out, and then you positively reinforce that. Oh, I love the way that Ella was sitting. Joseph was dancing his little heart out. And as soon as you say, I like the way someone's doing something, they are going to remember what you said, how you praised, and you will see if I say, I like the way that Ella's sitting, quickly everyone else looks at Ella and they copycat her mannerisms. So it's a really good way to control your class in a loving way without saying like, don't touch, don't do this, and commenting on all the negatives. Comment on the positives and let them figure it out themselves. Okay, our schedule of our class. It's really important that you are ready to go 15 minutes before service starts. This is not you turning on things. It's not you figuring out the lesson plans. This is the time that our classrooms open. And as teachers and someone who respects this ministry at Eastside, we need to be ready to roll 15 minutes before an activity on those kidney-shaped tables. And we are ready to do some simple craft, make conversation, accept those kids, love on them without looking on our phones at our lessons or on the printed lessons in the classroom. That's a really big piece. It also, by looking at the lessons before, will really allow you to figure it out in your mind what order of things you want to do. Your activities. So kids are going to come in 15 minutes before service, and you're going to have them at that kidney-shaped table coloring, doing paints, anything that keeps their hands busy, their mouths and their minds able to talk to you and build relationships, and their feet and their booties in a chair. We want them still, their whole bodies, busy with their hands and able to make conversation. That's what that 25-minute gap is for, is to relationship build. It's very important, and probably just as important as the rest of the time that you have with them. From about a minute 11 to 20, I would do some type of welcome game. The curriculum gives us a lot of good options for welcome games. You can use one of those. You can get them on the floor in a circle, pass a ball around. They have to tell you their name and their favorite season. Their favorite candy, their whatever. It's just a time for them to be able to speak and share, which they really like. During that time also, you're also going to do the intro to the bottom line. Each Sunday has a bottom line, and it's the thing we want them to remember. It's the bottom line of the day. When the parents pick them up, what did you learn? That's what we want them to say. This was the bottom line. After that, we're going to do 2 songs. When we do 2 songs, I tell kiddos, this is why we are singing and dancing. This is who we're singing to dancing to. It doesn't matter if you sing well, you dance well. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that they're in their own little box and they're not touching anybody else. But so you'll choose 2 songs from the cue on the computer, and it helps if you are dancing and singing as well. Trust me, they're not judging. If you are, a great performer, they're judging, are you doing it with them? Are you having fun? After that, they are going to sit down, which is good because then they've been up and now they can sit down. And for the next few minutes they're going to watch their story. Before you start the story, tell them, I want you to look for this particular thing in the story and answer this question when it's over, which means you have to know what the story's about. So you've got to have to do your homework so you can say, who was the main character? What was the crazy thing that happened? What was that thing? What did God feed them that fell from heaven? What was the one rule? you're asking the question so they know what to look for. It helps with comprehension. It helps them pay attention and focus. And then after the story, talk it out. Ask them what that exit question was. Ask them what they were looking for, and make it personable. Just talk about it a little bit. Don't say, that was your lesson, good to go. You're the person that they care about. So make sure that they are getting a little bit of feedback and conversation with you. After that, you can do 2 to 3 activities. Think that you want them moving, you want them thinking, you want them creating. All of them are very important. All kids are going to like a different combination, but I always try to think, have I allowed them to move? Have I allowed them to think? Have I allowed them to create? A lot of times that creating one is the best thing to end with, because when service ends, it's best if they are sitting at a table working on something. One adult can stay at the table, and then one adult can work the door and make sure that we are getting tags to the parent, or taking the tags from the parents like we should. Really important. You can see at that bottom, before each transition, tell them what you want them to do before they move. You're going to say, okay, we're going to move to the carpet. I want you to do exactly this. I want you to move in this way. I want you to go to this exact spot, because then it allows you to give some praising. I like the way that Jackson tiptoed to his spot. But everything needs to be really, really prepared and really communicated. Some safety policies that we need to remember. I know a lot of people think, oh, children's ministry, we can't be too rough and gruff with them. But our job as a teacher in that classroom is to advocate for the entire group. And when we do have one child that is acting up, that means the whole entire group is missing out on the experience that we've planned for them. So some things to think about, the stage and the chalkboard, and we're going to flip down to the computers. Children don't need to use that. It does not matter whose children they are, what children they are, how old they are. No children need to touch it. Our children don't see a difference between who you are or what you do or how long you've been here. No one should really be touching those things. It does lead to confusion with the kids, but no kids need to be up on the stage. We have some easily breakable things up there. No kids need to be touching that chalkboard and the computer. Even if they say, oh, I know how to work it, that's fantastic. We'll find an adult that can do that. Again, we're wanting to avoid students touching each other. Remember, cause and effect. It can get out of control really quickly. Students are going to have to go to the bathroom, and that's perfectly okay. Only allow one student to go at a time, and I always stand in that doorway so I can see them go directly there and come directly back. As a parent, I would want to know that someone has eyes on my child the whole entire time. For supplies, this is kind of like everything else. You can ask someone to pass something out, but if a student is, getting into stuff and taking stuff without asking, don't let them do that, because it's allowing for them to disrespect the space that they're in. Language, same thing. Remember that this is a church, and that we do have different backgrounds coming. And so if a child is saying something that's maybe not so appropriate, just say, we don't say that here. It's okay to say that to a kid, even if it's okay for them to speak in their family. They're in a different environment here. And the last thing is tags. Make sure that the child keeps the tag on their front or their back. If they're going to fiddle with it, then it's got to go to the back. But those tags are really, really important to make sure if something does happen, we can read their tag. If they fiddled with it and it's completely gone or it's been ripped up, we don't know what their number is, and then we cannot easily communicate with their parents in the auditorium. I think that's it. That was the quickest 15 minutes of my life. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask Miss Bev, Miss Jan, or myself, and you'll see us around the halls, and I'm excited for another great year in the K2 classroom.